Oh, guy, we're already going. I wasn't even paying attention. All right, you guys are probably all saying to yourself, what's all this garbage about telegraphs and telephones and railroads? What difference does it freaking make? I don't understand what this dude's talking about. Let's try to bring it a little forward so you guys can get kind of an understanding of how things work and how this really affects your present day. Some of you have heard about the technology. It's called a technology. It's marketing mumbo jumbo as usual. We'll get some more into that when we get to cloud. Oh my gosh. It's really amazing when I get some of your papers and your discussions, just kind of how you're really not grokking cloud. And it's okay because it's a marketing term. It's tricky and it's not tricky. It's vague and it doesn't mean anything. And when they try to explain it to you, it just gets more confusing. It's made to get you to spend money. Come on. That's all it's there for. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about LTE. Most of you hear on the television all the time about why you should care about this. 4G LTE technology. And you're going, what the heck are they talking about? All I know is I got to have it because if I don't have it, I'm a stupid schmuck and I'm behind the times and I'm going to go down and I'm going to have a crappy phone and people are going to say bad things about me. I think you pretty much got the marketing stint of LTE. It actually stands for long-term evolution, which is a meaningless freaking term. Except from the standpoint of, you have to know about telegraph and telephone and then railroads and all these things and how they kind of can interact with each other. These concepts let you understand why LTE is really long-term evolution, although that's just a gunky marketing term. I don't understand what that thing means. Before LTE, cellular networking ran very much like the old-time telephone. We had talked about the fact that first start with the infrastructure, the telegraph lines, right? When you work the cellular networking, all you do is you replace the actual physical copper cabling, or in newer days, fiber optic cabling. That's replaced with wireless connections. Still circuits. You still kind of own that little piece of bandwidth that you're actually, and it's not something you can see, of course, because it's wireless. It happens in the air, somewhat. Anyway, sorry. I'm trying to give you a concept without getting weird about how it actually works. The original telephone was based on circuits, and that's exactly what this stuff is. Wirelessly, too. Your cell phone is not any different than the telephone from 1876 at its very little heart. It's a little heart of hearts. It's the same darn freaking thing. It just uses a different medium to send it. Instead of sending it through a copper wire, it sends it over. Radio waves. Still basically one conversation or data stream. They're both basically treated the same way in old fashions called POTS, POTS, plain old telephone system. So don't you love these terms we come up with? They sound kind of silly, but it just explains what it is. It's just the same old telephone system that we've had for almost 150 years. At some point, we got what's called multiplexing, which is that you could carry on several conversations along the same one wire. The typical way to do it was time slicing. You would chunk up a voice conversation into little time slices, and depending on how good the circuit was between how long it was, there's loss to be considered, things like that. You could put a certain number of conversations on the same medium. Same thing's true for cellular right now. Until probably about 5 or 10 years ago, it's now starting to get into your universe now, isn't it? We're not talking about 200 years ago, although the actual concepts being used are exactly the same. Things have not changed appreciably in the last 200 years. Like I've always said, there's been no real innovation since 1940. I know people argue and complain and say, that's not true, Namro. And then I'll give you several wonderful examples of how it is true, but I'm not going to do that right now because it's not interesting and nor germane to this course. Hi. What long-term evolution is that we're finally moving from a voice-based motif, which is you have a circuit and you connect. You remember on the whole operator thing, your operator would go to the patch panel, would sit in front of the patch panel, and they would take a wire and push it into one port, and they'd take the other side of that patch cord, and they would plug it into the other side. They would form a long circuit to get you from one telephone headset to the other, one in New York, one in Los Angeles, just as an example. That's basically how your cellular phone worked too, except it was all electronic. There actually was something that would actually set up that circuit. The actual wireless part of it's actually a very small part of the circuit that gets made. It's called the last mile. And that lets you not have to be restricted by having a cord to your phone that you have to haul around. Now it's wireless for that last mile. But it still operated exactly like that phone. Well, you guys remember about what we were talking about, the railroad and the fact that you can packetize things, stick them in different boxcars, and send them off to different places. And as long as you had your logistics worked out right, it would ultimately make it to that last destination. It would get from where it started to where it went. If you think it would be stupid to carry on a conversation via railroad, that's true. We still use the same concept, but we do it in a much incredibly faster way. It passes through several networks to get to its final destination. All the addressing and all the routing is done by something called the Internet Protocol, IP. Anyway, so now what we call long-term evolution is just basically using that railroad concept of packetizing things into little pieces and sending them onto the next onto basically kind of a virtual boxcar and sending it places. Now that's coming to cellular network. That's what LTE is. And this is new, right? It's your new marketing thing. Ooh, I got a hat, 4G LTE, woohoo. And all that is something that we've had for hundreds of years, just finally coming to your cellular network. It's just the moving of packets around. It takes your voice. If you're making a voice call, it takes the voice information, breaks it up into digital packets, and starts sending them over the internet, just like anything else. Just like your email goes over the internet, just like your videos that you watch on Netflix, all those things, it goes through the same kind of thing. Your voice goes that way too. And it gets reassembled on the far side. It's just taking it so that your actual handset can reassemble those packets and give them to you as a conversation. Instead of using a whole circuit, which is very wasteful, you don't really need all that bandwidth. It breaks it up into little pieces and makes it more efficient. That's all. That's LTE. Boy, you didn't know that you were spending so much money trying to get this new wonderful technology, and it's the same old stuff. It's really more efficient for the back-end guys. For AT&T, it's nice and cheap because it's a cheaper way for them to transport your voice data than it was to give you these circuits. Although they charge you more. Imagine that. Wow. I do it cheaper, I charge you more, and I get to pocket the money. Isn't that great? My stockholders love me. Buy stock in cellular companies. They're ripping you off.